Right. Another day, another week. More sports to talk about. You're listening to the Chips Podcast on WERW Real College Radio. Tyler Melito joined once again by Ryan Amick. Ryan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing amazing. Like you said, another week, more sports. I think even more than last week. I mean, I can't remember the last time there were this many sports all at once. Probably because there wasn't this many sports all at once. These seasons usually do not align like this, but it's in terms of entertainment. It's been pretty nice how it's lined up this way. We have football that happened this weekend. We got NBA basketball. The finals are set. We'll get into that a little bit later. Even then, MLB playoffs starting today.
Right now.
A couple hours ago. There are a couple games going on at the moment we'll get to later on as well. The Stanley Cup finished last night. We have our winner. We'll get to that later on the show as well. So teasing some of the other sports that we'll get into. But that just shows you, how much has happened not only this weekend, but just these past couple months, because all sports have been forced to kind of play together, and it's been great as a fan of sports, as a fan of any sport, whether you like football more, basketball more, whatever. It's just been great having all these on at once. A lot to talk about, especially for a show like this, and some of the biggest news that's happened last night. One of the most hyped games of the season didn't exactly live up to expectations, but the Chiefs going to Baltimore, defeating the Ravens 34-20, and it's just I think people were kind of foolish to second guess Patrick Mahomes on this one.
Oh man, oh my, Patrick Mahomes. I think there was definitely a conversation as to who was the top dog in the NFL at quarterback, simply because Lamar Jackson, the reigning NFL MVP, Patrick Mahomes, the reigning Super Bowl MVP, NFL MVP in 2018. Patrick Mahomes clearly settled the debate as who is the best quarterback in the NFL. 31 for 42, 385 passing yards, 4 touchdowns total, passing touchdowns, and another one on the ground. So very solid indeed.
I think a lot of that debate of who might be the top of the league came from the players themselves. The NFL Top 100 rankings that came out this offseason, that's run mainly by the players and people that are their peers, ranked Lamar Jackson as the number 1 player in the league and Mahomes as number 4.
Not even the number 2 quarterback. He was number 3 quarterback behind Russell Wilson
as
Lamar
well.
Jackson.
Very controversial ranking there. And Mahomes just put all that to rest. This is literally his world. He controls everything in the NFL right now. There's just no stopping this man. No one can figure out him and just this Chiefs offense, which I think we put on display last night, just how whimsical and creative they are, and
Andy
just how
Reid was in his bag.
Unstoppable. Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, just every member of the Chiefs offense, from the playmakers like Tyreek Hill, who had another big game last night, scored a touchdown.
77 yards on 5 catches.
25 yards on the ground as well. Their new weapon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, solid game as well. Ran it 20 times, 64 yards.
Plus an additional 70 yards receiving, which I think is huge for this Chiefs offense. The fact that they have someone who is solid in the backfield and also good catching the ball.
Yeah, they've been looking for that ever since Kareem Hunt left. I think they found their guy in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He works very well with the system. Had a pretty similar system when he was at LSU, so he's worked fluidly in this offense, to say the least.
Seamless transition.
Seamless, very seamless. But even the offensive line was eating last night. Eric Fisher, number 1 overall pick back in 2012, gets his first career touchdown last night off a Mahomes touchdown pass that kind of put it out of reach and kind of put an exclamation point on this victory for Kansas City. And just obviously this offense as a whole is just totally unstoppable. They versed one of the top defenses in the league last night and embarrassed them at home. But just Mahomes himself and the way he handled the pressure that the Ravens were giving him. They were pass rushing almost every single down. They were trying to make Mahomes uncomfortable, and he didn't look phased at all the entire game. There's one play of note. He always has these kind of highlight plays against the Ravens. One of his first highlights that put him on the map back in 2018 was that no-look sidearm pass. Kind of did something similar to that last night. He was getting pass rushed. Fake jump passes, catches 2 defenders off guard, goes to the other side of the field, runs to his left, sidearms it to his receiver.
Who does that?
Absolute. He's literally. It's not only backyard football. It's just
video game.
It's
backyard.
It's just not real. It doesn't seem real. He's literally toying with professional defenders who are one of the best defenses in the league in the Baltimore Ravens, especially their secondary. I mean, he just carved them up for almost 400 yards last night. One of the best secondaries in the league, and it's just phenomenal. I'm just kind of lost for words right now. I mean,
you and I were talking before the show, as someone who had Patrick Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the start for my fantasy football team down 55 points, they came back and helped me with that's how good of a game they had. But shifting to the Ravens a little bit, Lamar Jackson, really bad night for him. And I think his offensive line struggled a lot. That didn't help him. Jackson, 15 for 28, 97 yards passing, 1 touchdown. He did have 83 yards rushing, so I guess the dual threatness was there. But his offensive line did not help, and I think the loss of Marshall Yanda, who retired in the offseason, has been even bigger than we initially expected. Don't get me wrong, the Chiefs' defense was on point, getting pressure, 4 sacks on Jackson, but when the offensive line, Jackson had no time to throw, and when your lone passing touchdown for Jackson was to Nate Boyle, I hope I'm getting that right. I know it's Boyle.
I think it's Nick Boyle.
Not to Mark Andrews, not to Marquise Brown, not to J.K. Dobbins or Mark Ingram or any of the guys you would expect. That tells a lot, and I think the Ravens desperately need to reconsider their passing game, and I think they will because they are the Baltimore Ravens, but it was very interesting to watch last night, I will say.
Yeah, no. Also, I mean, obviously the offensive line didn't play great. They gave up 4 sacks, which is not typical for someone as elusive as Lamar. But also just the playmakers for this team were not showing up. Obviously, Lamar, look at the numbers, didn't even reach 100 yards passing and only completed 15 passes. So that's not great. That's not going to get done against a high-powered offense like the Chiefs. But at the same time, his weapons were dropping balls a lot, missing opportunities. Sometimes he would overthrow them. Sometimes it just they wouldn't also get open as well.
There were some missed opportunities for sure.
There were definitely some missed opportunities, but a lot of the time, Lamar was holding on to the ball for a while. He just couldn't find anyone open because just the Ravens' playmakers were just not getting themselves open. Mark Andrews dropped a touchdown pass. He had a very slow night, 3 receptions for 22 yards. Marquise Brown, he's had a pretty solid year so far, and he's came into the season as one of the focal points of this offense because he added weight. He looked stronger. He always had that speed element to him.
He had like 25
He's a good route runner. They were not connecting at all last night. 2 receptions for 13 yards for Marquise Brown. So, I mean, just no production on offense at all. The defense played decently. Special teams got a touchdown for them. But the offense just couldn't help the rest of the Ravens team. I mean, it's just...
And you're going to have those games, let's
be
real, where the defense plays pretty solid for the most part and the offense doesn't show up, or vice versa. So that was the case for the Ravens. A team that maybe didn't have that as much this past weekend, Rams-Bills. What a game that was. It came down to the wire. Buffalo ultimately pulling out the win. I'm trying to find the score right now as this computer is very weird. But Buffalo, they had a 28-3 lead over the Rams. They nearly blew it. It ended up being a 35-32 game. Is Josh Allen the front runner for the MVP right now?
There's a couple front runners. I don't know front runner yet. 3 weeks into the season. It's not as clear-cut as 2018 with Mahomes, clear-cut as 2019 with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, we kind of knew they'd win it come like week 5. Everyone knew, all right, this guy is the MVP if he stays healthy. And luckily for them, they did. Josh Allen is definitely up there, though. I'm glad you mentioned this game because we previewed it a little last week. We said this was a game to look out for sure. The Bills almost blew it, as you said, 28-3 lead, like another team we'll get to in a sec. Almost a blown lead, but the Bills came through because of a last possession touchdown led by Josh Allen, his 8th career game-winning drive to win a game in his very young career. Very impressive.
And mind you,
on that,
2 quarterbacks were taken ahead of him in the NFL draft. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, who, let's be real, have stunk for their NFL careers. Josh Rosen was taken 2 picks later,
him,
who has barely played at all. And then there was Lamar Jackson, who was the 30th overall pick. You might have heard of him. We just were talking about him. But the Bills moved to 3-0. They are tops of the AFC East, 1 game ahead of the Patriots. Allen, 311 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And the thing is, he's making it look easy. It doesn't look like... Granted, he's played some not great defenses to start. We mentioned this last week. He played the Jets. He's played the Dolphins. And the Rams, they're not the defense that maybe they once were. Aaron Donald had his game. Jalen Ramsey looked off
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey's getting beat all game by Stephon Diggs, and
Yeah.
he did not have a great game getting called for penalties, especially in the fourth quarter on that last possession.
Yeah.
I believe there was a penalty called on Jalen Ramsey that kind of put the game away for them.
And I think he was the quote-unquote top corner in the league.
He talks a lot.
Ever since he got traded, he's stunk, in my opinion. He hasn't lived up to the hype. He got paid recently, and the Rams were almost forced to pay him given how much they gave up to Jacksonville. So I think Jalen Ramsey, although he's playing not so hot, he doesn't care because he's going to make a boatload of money in the next year.
And then you look at Marcus Peters, who the Rams had before they got Jalen Ramsey. And they traded him to the Ravens, and he's been locked down for them. He's been a big reason why their secondary, aside from last night's game, has been so dominant so far during his tenure with the Ravens.
That's true.
But switching back to Allen, like you were saying, it just was very easy for him. He's in complete control of the game. The offense, the addition of Stephon Diggs, I kind of knew it'd be a big deal, but I didn't know how big a deal it would be because it kind of just brings this whole offense together. I mean, this offense looks established. They have, obviously, Stephon Diggs as their main target. But then guys like Cole Beasley got 100 yards on Sunday's game. He's just a third down threat. I've never seen a player as big a third down threat as Cole Beasley in my life. That might just be, as a Giant fan, seeing him on the Cowboys do it to us every year, twice a year. It's just every third down, he's so reliable. He'll give you the first down, especially in big moments like in the fourth quarter of Sunday's game. But yeah, Josh Allen, he's got 1,000 yards on a season. That's second in the NFL. Also second in touchdowns with 10 behind Russell Wilson, who is on pace to break the touchdown record.
Yeah, most touchdowns through 3 games in NFL history.
He's got
back-to-back 5 touchdowns.
Touchdowns.
Yeah.
Oh my, wow.
One other thing with the Bills,
See, that's the thing when you were asking me front runner for MVP. I mean, the guy who has 14 touchdowns might be.
And Russell Wilson, I think, has been robbed.
God, is he on fire right now?
And you got Aaron Rodgers as well, who has played solid, and Mahomes, of course. One other thing with the Bills,
and even Lamar Jackson. I mean, yesterday wasn't great, but that's probably the hardest game he'll have this whole season.
It's way too early to talk about MVPs, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many quarterbacks who are playing on an elite level right now. And that's just why football is so fun to watch right now.
Indeed.
I honestly like it this way more because last year we just knew. I mean, Russell Wilson had a great year. Some people even thought he should get some consideration, but everyone knew, man, this Lamar Jackson guy, he's kind of different. He's kind of putting up some different stats for a quarterback, not only through the air, but obviously on the ground as well.
It didn't help that also for Lamar Jackson's case, last year no one expected it. I don't think anyone thought that he was going to take leaps and bounds thing. And now I think that has hurt some players like Kyler Murray, who has played solidly through 2 games.
We haven't even mentioned Kyler, and he before Sunday's game, he was playing very well as well.
But now the expectation was
at that point.
Yeah, that's true. But the expectation was the second-year quarterback to take a leap. It was Mahomes in 2018, Jackson in 2019. Everyone thought, oh, Kyler Murray, this. And then here I was, talking to friends of mine, and I might have mentioned this to you as well, I am not buying the hype in Kyler Murray. I thought that there were other players at the quarterback position who could take a
You mean the MVP hype?
Yeah, I wasn't buying the MVP hype. I wasn't buying, like, oh, Kyler Murray's going to lead the Cardinals to a deep playoff run. I thought they could make the playoffs, which the NFC East or NFC West is looking very good right now. They have at least 3 teams make it. But one more thing about the Bills before I forget. They did all of this last week without John Brown, their number 2 wide receiver, getting a single catch. Cole Beasley had 6 catches. Stephon Diggs had 4. Tyler Kroft had 4 catches for 2 touchdowns. Like, if the Bills can keep this up, watch out.
He's not even their best tight end.
That's true.
Which is crazy. Dawson Knox, I would say, is a top tight end in the Bills locker room. But he didn't even play. John Brown didn't play well, and the Bills still pulled it off, thanks in large part to their signal caller and MVP considerate come 3 weeks into the season, Josh Allen. We'll give him at least that.
Speaking of play calling, I guess, what is going on in Atlanta? Because they seem to be able to get it to a lead. They were up 26-10 on the Chicago Bears through 3 quarters of play. And then in the fourth quarter, they can't do anything, and they lose 30-26.
You could ask what's good with play calling and playmakers for both teams, because the Bears, I never thought they would have pulled Mitch Trubisky in this game, no matter how bad they were down, especially because 2-0 on the season. He played pretty well his first game. Obviously wasn't great against the Giants, but Giants were such an awful team that the Bears still won that game. And Mitch Trubisky was 2-0 on the season. It was looking pretty good. And it worked out for the Bears because once they benched him, Nick Foles came in, threw 3 touchdowns, and they won the game. So looking back at it, that made sense at the time. But I was just pretty shocked at how fast they yanked him, especially because they named him the starter week 1. And that QB battle, I mean, apparently Mitch Trubisky had won that battle because otherwise why would he even been starting in the first place? So they just had a very short leash with him, especially because when you look at guys like Mahomes and Watson, obviously they're tied to Trubisky throughout his entire career. They'll always be tied to him because the Bears traded up and picked Trubisky over them. And just seeing how good they're doing compared to Trubisky, they had a very short leash with him. They're like, you need to show us that you were worth it or we're going to move on. And they did not have much patience with him because even though they had not lost in the season and Trubisky was playing decent, they still benched him, put Nick Foles in, and he got the job done as he usually does when he's called into games as the backup option. He might be one of the best backup quarterbacks ever, if we really think about it. Like, when has there ever been a quarterback in the backup position who just comes into games and just turns not only games around but seasons around? Obviously,
there's one that's better
season
that
in
comes to
2017.
mind. There's one that's better. That's Kurt Warner. He was the backup to Trent Green in St. Louis. Then Trent Green got hurt, and Warner ended up having a Hall of Fame career, leading the Rams to a Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win. So that's my pick for the greatest.
I understand that Kurt Warner is obviously a better quarterback, but what I was kind of saying,
I get what you're saying.
Like he's still a backup. Like after he won a Super Bowl MVP, after he put up decent numbers. Obviously, this was back in 2013 with the Eagles, but like he had a good season with them where he only threw 2 picks to like 20-plus touchdowns.
27 touchdowns.
Then he won MVP for them in the Super Bowl, turned that season around, was thrown into the fire, did a beautiful job with it, and is a legend now in Philly.
They have a statue of him outside the stadium. That's how much of a legend he is.
Obviously, they have Carson Wentz, who up to this season was looking like he'd be their franchise guy, so they had to move on. But like Foles, I feel like he did get a starting job with the Jaguars the next season.
And then he got hurt.
But he got injured, and then he was relegated to backup role again. So everything in this guy's career, he just ends up going back to the backup role, and then at some point he's put into a tire fire situation almost. Like the Bears were down 16 in the third quarter. It was looking like this might have been a lost game. But Foles, like he's done in so many times in the past, leads his team back, played very well. As I said, 3 touchdowns, 188 yards, and only a quarter and a half of play in the Atlanta Falcons, man. Well, I mean, they're making Giant fans look like we're just chilling out here because at least we know before the games start that we're going to lose. But the Falcons show their fans, we could be up 20 points in the third quarter, but we're still not going to win.
I will say, in the Falcons' defense, at least for this week, excuse me, Julio Jones didn't play. He was out with an injury, which is a very rare thing. Julio Jones usually never misses games. Didn't play this week. I don't think it would have made a difference because Matt Ryan, 238 yards, 50% completion percentage, 1 touchdown to 1 interception. Not going to get the job done. Todd Gurley, who was released, they've signed him. 80 yards on 14 carries for a touchdown. All right, okay, I guess, but he hasn't looked great. Calvin Ridley had 5 catches for 110 yards. Once again, balling out. But
Ridley's balling.
But here's the thing:
that's
5 catches on 13 targets. That's not very efficient.
That isn't very.
That's less than 50%. I don't know the exact number because math is hard for me. That's a lot of things.
That's definitely less than 50%.
That is definitely less than 50%. The 1 touchdown passing for Atlanta was Hayden Hurst on a 1-yard play.
Yeah.
So, I think Dan Quinn needs to be fired. They're not going to fire him.
I don't blame the offense at all, though. I mean, looking at the stats, they don't jump off the screen, but the numbers they've been putting up have been some of the top of the league. Like, Matt Ryan is top 5 in most QB metrics. They're throwing the ball all the time. They put up 39 points when they infamously lost to the Cowboys last week. That's still a lot of points to be putting up. Put 26 points up today. Not great, but I think it's more on the defense. Because you look at this, the fourth quarter, the Bears scored 20 points.
That's true.
That is all
Well, the Bears
defense.
shouldn't have the chance to score 20
That's all
points.
mindset, just not getting it done. That has to do with Dan Quinn as well, who now this is his 3rd famous choking job. But just since the Super Bowl, this team has made the playoffs once. and it's just not been the same team. Even though the offensive numbers kind of stay the same. Like, offense has been on the top, or the Falcons, have been in the top of the league in offensive numbers for the past 4 or 5 years or so. It's the defense that Dan Quinn came in as a specialist from with his past with the Seahawks, Legion of Boom defense that won him Super Bowl. He had that background, so coming into this gig, he was expected to fix this defense. It's getting worse and worse and worse every year, and now it's choking 20-plus point leads in the fourth quarter.
In back-to-back weeks.
I mean, the Falcons are lost right now. I think Dan Quinn should be fired at some point. I don't see a single reason for him to stay. There's nothing he's done to benefit this team. They're 0-3 for a reason. They are not mentally strong. I don't know how it is in the locker room and how their chemistry is, but I doubt it's very high right now because they have some very morale-crushing losses on their season. Very early season, it's looking like their time might be over already. I mean, 0-3 is... They could still go on a good streak like they did last year.
Houston made the playoffs at 0-3 a couple years ago.
Yeah, and they had a 6-2 run at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. So they could go on a run and make things interesting in the NFC South, but you have the Bucs and Saints already there, who were the favorites going into the season. So for you to squander opportunities like this against the teams and the Bears and the Cowboys, who aren't exactly world killers, I mean, those are games that, especially when you're out big, you should be winning games like that. Just the Falcons have just looked awful. Except for Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's been the one bright spot on this team. Man, has he been lighting up. He looks very exciting. And he's kind of continuing the chain in Atlanta of having one very good wide receiver one. Started with Rodney White, went to Julio Jones. Now it's looking like it might be Calvin Ridley's time.
Julio Jones' days numbered in Atlanta?
How old is he? 32?
He's at least 30.
He's definitely at least 31. I feel like he's like 32.
Here's what's great about Google, Ryan, and having a computer.
I know. I always ask you that. I should.
You have one for me. Julio Jones is 31. He turns 32 in February.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they release him in not after this season. Not after this season. But in a year.
Released him.
After the 2021 season, I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to perform. Because Julio Jones has really not had a blow-your-mind season.
He puts like 1,400 yards up every year, though. I mean, it's the touchdowns for him have always been an issue. He's not been...
But they have Calvin Ridley, who's younger and going to be cheaper.
No. Obviously, Calvin Ridley at this point should be the focal point of the receiving group and of the offense, really. Because you have guys like Julio Jones and Todd Gurley, who a couple years ago were the top in the league, but injuries and age have hampered them a little bit. I think Todd Gurley's been hampered more than Julio. I think Julio's definitely one of the top 3 receivers in the league still at this moment. But if injuries start to pile up, if this offense just falls off a cliff, this team just has no reason to play for anything anymore, then yeah, Julio might honestly look for somewhere else to play. Because there's so many times in his career that he should be considered as a winner. Because you look at the Super Bowl alone, that great sideline catch he made.
Only he can make that play.
Only he can make plays like that, and that play should have stopped the comeback right there. They would put them in field goal range. If they hit a field goal, it would have been too much for the Pats to come back from. Mm-hmm. But
they get sacked twice.
The Falcons squander that, and Julio is just looked at as a career loser because his team has done nothing but lose and choke big moments. And so for Julio, whether it's because of old age, because he's on the decline, because you have Calvin Ridley now, or because he just doesn't want to be there anymore, I can now see why he might leave there. It's just releasing him, that just seems kind of odd because he's one of the best players in your franchise's history. But it makes sense. It's a business. So that's enough on the Falcons, though. I mean, it's clear.
There's really nothing else.
They're lost right now.
Yeah.
The Bears somehow 3-0. Don't take that 3-0 seriously. I don't even know if I'm not sure if this would be a playoff team when it's all said and done.
It'd be tough
because it depends on how Foles plays.
But look who the Bears have played. They played the Lions, the Giants, and the Falcons.
The Lions dropped the pass. They should have won that. The Giants, that was a close one.
They lost Saquon Barkley.
They lost Saquon Barkley and only lost by 4 points, and then the Falcons choking out the lead. That's why the Bears are 3-0.
3 4-point games to start the year for the Bears, which I find very funny.
Yeah.
So let's take a break. Because I think
we've talked enough about the NFL.
We've talked a lot about NFL. There's a lot more to talk about in the world of sports. We'll preview the NBA Finals between the Los Angeles Lakers and Miami Heat after the break. Ryan, we are going to be listening to a song called Let's see. Funny Thing by Thundercat. I don't know.
Wait.
So, hope you enjoy. You're listening to WERW Real College Radio in the Chips Podcast. We'll be back in a minute. And welcome back. You are listening to the Chips Podcast on WERW Real College Radio. Tyler Melito that's accompanied by, I guess is a better term, by Ryan Amick. We just talked about the NFL. Let's shift gears to the NBA Finals. Yeah. Ryan, I'm excited.
I just want to take a second to just marvel at how we got here in the NBA. Because this was really the first league I remember coming back, experimenting with a bubble format, and just doing it very different. Like, just doing a format that's just obviously unlike anything we've ever seen before. Because obviously, the MLB, they didn't really have a bubble. They kind of just went to each team's park and played there in front of no fans. The NFL, same thing. They're going to their own stadiums. So they don't have a bubble format or anything. But the NBA, not only did they finish the regular season, which I wasn't a huge fan of at the start, but they had a playoffs as well, all in Orlando. So these guys have been in Orlando since when did they
July.
get there? Was it late July?
Early July because they had to go down there and quarantine.
So it's been over 2 months at this point that the Lakers
day 70
and the
or
Heat
80
have been there at least.
They're approaching 80 days, which is insane.
And it's kind of flown by. I mean, it seems just like yesterday that Devin Booker was leading his Suns to an 8-0 charge to try to make the play-in game, and Damian Lillard was dropping 50 points every night. I mean,
willing the Blazers to the playoffs.
Yeah, beating that Nets team and the Grizzlies to get into the playoffs. I mean, the NBA bubble has just gone very smoothly. No positive tests. Everyone's been playing well.
Even as family members.
Not many injuries either. I mean, we look at the NFL, so many injuries since they returned to play. NBA, not
Have there
any.
Been
That's
any?
I can't remember a single major injury.
Gordon Hayward got hurt for Boston. That was one. But Luka rolled his ankle, but he didn't miss any time.
And people at
Pat
the beginning,
got hurt.
like Montrezl Harrell and Lou Will, they didn't even.
But they left for other reasons.
Yeah, those weren't injuries. Those were bubble-related instances, especially Lou Williams. That was totally out there, a different reason. But we're finally here. The finals, it's came pretty fast. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like we just started. Yeah.
And I honestly have enjoyed watching the games in a bubble more. But let's talk about these finals. Los Angeles Lakers, first time they've been in the NBA Finals since 2010, when they last won it, with Kobe Bryant leading the way. So this means a lot for the Lakers franchise. And then you got the Miami Heat, who last appeared in the finals in 2014. They lost that series to the San Antonio Spurs. They last won it in 2013. That was with the big three: LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. And let's start with LeBron James because obviously he currently plays for the Lakers, played for the Heat. So it's kind of like, what do you... there was a thing on Twitter after the Heat clinch. Who's he going to cheer for, the Heat or his best friend LeBron James?
Oh, Dwayne Wade? Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I feel like he's definitely going to do the Heat.
He said he will cheer for the Heat.
Yeah, he'll definitely cheer for the Heat.
A mistake in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there.
But also, that kind of gives LeBron somewhat of an advantage because he knows what that Heat culture is all about. He played in it for 4 years.
He knows what
Eric
Spoelstra's
Spoelstra's still there. Pat Riley's still the owner. This is the same format of a team, just different players. So he has that inside where, I mean, not that he needs it, because I feel like the Lakers will win this series.
Right, I don't think he would need it, even if he never
Yeah.
played for the Heat.
Yeah, if he never played for the Heat, that wouldn't have mattered. The Lakers are just outmatch them. It's really that simple. Because if you look at the Heat, two of their best players are Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. And the Lakers' two best players, as we know, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, are kind of just better versions of that. I mean, I could see some Jimmy Butler.
Who's going to guard LeBron James? That's the big question.
What was that?
Who's going to guard LeBron James?
That's the thing. He have an advantage, in my opinion, because they have Jay Crowder, they have Andre Iguodala, they have Jimmy Butler. All three perfectly capable of somewhat trying to stop LeBron James. I mean, no one can really stop LeBron one-on-one, especially finals LeBron, especially 2020 finals LeBron, with everything that the Lakers have on their shoulders. They had a pretty easy road to the finals as well, when you really think about it. I mean, Trailblazers, that was a pretty good series, but Lillard got injured. They won in 5. The Rockets, they never really stood a chance, won that series in 5. And then they didn't even have to face the Clippers, which everyone thought was going to happen. Everyone was kind of looking forward to that matchup, especially LeBron versus Kawhi, arguably two of the best players in the league going head-to-head. He avoided that. Instead, he got the Nuggets, who were on fire, were a very good team, But again, they were outmatched, similar to the Nuggets and the Heat, kind of in similar situations when you're looking at the Lakers. They're good teams. They've come back from behind. They know how to play well in a system. They don't have one true star like the Lakers do, or two true stars like the Lakers do. But they were getting it done in the playoffs up until when they first faced the Lakers. Obviously, the Lakers took care of the Nuggets in 5 games. And LeBron and AD both played how we expected them to play, and it worked out for them. So if they do that in the finals as well, they put up 30-plus points a night. You get another 38-point triple-double from the King. You get another buzzer beater from Anthony Davis. Anything like that. If they just play to their top caliber like they did in the Nuggets series, then they shouldn't really have a problem with the Heat.
That is true. I don't even think they need to play at their top caliber, to be completely honest, because you mentioned Jay Crowder. Okay, solid defender. Jimmy Butler, I mean, he's a dog. We know that. He's a tenacious defender. But I think LeBron James could bully him. Let's be real. Andre Iguodala, the guy is 36 years old. And sure, we can say LeBron James is 35. But LeBron James is a much different human being than Andre Iguodala. I don't know if he can keep up with LeBron like he did in 2015. And here's where I think the Heat are at a huge disadvantage. Because when the Lakers go big, when it's AD at the 4, and they have a Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee at center, similar to how they did in that Denver Nuggets series, Bam Adebayo, he's almost kind of forced to defend against JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard because of the size advantage. And that just allows Anthony Davis to feast.
Yeah,
do you trust Myers Leonard or Udonis Haslem, who I don't think has played all these playoffs, or Kelly Olynyk to really slow down Anthony Davis? No, come on, stop it. You're out of your mind.
That's the thing. I feel like the Heat, no matter if they go big lineup and put McGee or Howard in, I feel like they're always going to put Bam on AD because I think he's obviously one of their best defenders. He matches up well size-wise. And also, if you just make Anthony Davis uncomfortable, then that whole offense kind of shifts to some degree. So even though you might leave someone like a JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard open, it's more important that you stop Anthony Davis. You make him uncomfortable. You make sure he doesn't get going because once he starts getting going, the whole offense starts to get going. And that could spell trouble for the Heat. So I feel like one of the best advantages for the Heat is that they do have Bam Adebayo. They can put him on Anthony Davis because unlike Jokic could not stop Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, I feel, has a chance to stop someone like Anthony Davis because he did a good job against Giannis.
That's true.
And yeah, I mean,
but
they're not
the
same type of player. I know, I fully understand. I'm not trying to compare them like that. I'm just saying those are two big, very talented guys. So Bam, I think the Heat are very thankful they have Bam in this situation because, boy, does he make it a lot easier for them because without Bam, this would not even be a series.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing for the Lakers. Their key to the series, if I was to pick one thing, it's get Bam Adebayo in foul trouble. Because if he's in foul trouble, it's over. It's a wrap. That game's done. Because the Lakers have too much advantage in terms of size, where even the Heat with their speed and quickness and ability to shoot the three-pointer, they won't be able to keep up with the Lakers because they'll just be dominating in the post. When LeBron James is driving to the hoop, Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, etc.
You mentioned the shooting. I think, going back to my last point, the shooting for the Heat is more advantage than anything, even more than Bam or anything. Because this Heat team can light up at any second. They're so deep with shooters, obviously, with Tyler Hero dropping 37 one game. He's coming off the bench.
20 in
that Dragic leading the team in scoring on some occasions. I think Game 4 he led with like 29 points. Then you have Duncan Robinson, absolute sniper. Jimmy Butler, walking bucket in his own right. Bam Adebayo can make something happen on the offense as well. I mean, this offense as a whole, they play pretty similar to another opponent that LeBron is very familiar with in the Warriors, in that they facilitate the ball very well. They focus a lot on setting off-ball screens to get shooters like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson open, and that's a big formula for how this Heat team has been so effective, especially shooting the ball. It's pretty similar to how the Warriors structured it, obviously, with Clay as their Duncan and Steph as their Tyler to some degree. But
that's a big comp.
I'm saying
Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero to Steph
the way
Curry,
they run their team is
true.
pretty similar. And Duncan Robinson reminds me a lot of Klay Thompson. I think he can be, if he can fix his defensive game to be on the same level as Klay Thompson, I think those are almost identical people. Because what they do best is shoot the ball, very fast release, and off the dribble. Just spot up, run around screens, which the Heat tend to do like the Warriors did, and just find the open shooter and let him shoot. And that's what Klay Thompson and the Warriors did a lot. That's what I think Duncan Robinson and the Heat are doing a lot as well. So I just see a lot of similarities there. But LeBron has seen that game many times before. He's had 4 finals in a row where he had to go against a team like that. So going against another team like that with less talented players, I think can only mean good things for the King.
I will say, though, Duncan Robinson is very streaky when it comes to shooting a three-point ball. He was 2 for 7 in Game 1 against the Celtics, 6 for 12 in Game 2.
He struggled in
4
the
for 8
Western
from Game 3,
Eastern
0
Conference
for
Finals.
4 in Game 4, 3 for 11 in Game 5, and then 5 for 7 in Game 6. So, he came out with a good game in their last game, but if he's not knocking it down, I mean, that's a big loss.
That's shoot.
Because he's just a body at that point.
That's
he's
why
not
I
great
said,
on defense, like you said.
Shooting might be the biggest factor for the Heat.
Yeah.
Because Duncan Robinson, he had a bad series last against the Celtics. But if he can turn it around, he's so big for them, and he's what can combat this Lakers offense, especially if they start to roll with LeBron and AD playing
get
so
rolling,
well
forget
right
it.
now.
Forget it. The Heat are not blowing any big-time leads, I don't think. It would take a lot of work from the Lakers if the Heat get up 20. There's no way the Lakers come back because they don't have the shooting. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has been not great at all. Danny Green has been... I was very excited when the Lakers signed Danny Green.
Almost every minute on the floor.
Kyle Kuzma's streaky. Alex
Kuzma and Caruso are really the only two you could go to kind of on the bench. Oh, Rondo, not in terms of offense. Rondo's played great.
But Rondo's been knocked down. He shot 40% from 3, I think, so far this playoffs.
No, he's been playoff Rondo, obviously the different Rondo. He's been great, but you're not going to look to him when the second unit comes out to really score, maybe to facilitate and get the offense rolling. But guys like Kuzma really need to show up in this game. And one more note I thought was pretty funny just looking at some of the histories in the people involved in this Heat Lakers finals.
I know where you're going with this, and I find
So, Tyler Hero's current girlfriend is the ex-girlfriend of Lakers forward Kyle Kuzma.
That's not where I thought you were going with it, but
No, but I thought that was pretty funny because Hero and Kuzma are going to be facing each other. Kuzma's ex.
So you tell me if Kyle Kuzma slaps Tyler Hero in the face, it's more
that's what
than
I'm.
just
That's
basketball?
yes, that's what I'm saying. If there is a little skirmish going on between these two, it's not
she's in
just
the bubble.
Basketball.
She's in
not.
the bubble.
Yeah, what if he just sees her?
Oh my God,
at
Kyle
the
Kuzma
bowling
goes
alley or whatever they do on their off days, he just
fishing or whatever.
Yeah,
Kyle Kuzma goes for 40, and he just points to her, be like, "You shouldn't." I really hope that she broke up with him, and Kyle Kuzma goes for 40.
Yeah, that's because it pissed him off.
I would die laughing.
Kuzma, that's why watch out for Kuzma, because if he could be
extra motivation.
Yeah, because also they're kind of similar players. They're both coming off the bench, both score first type of players. Hero obviously a little better at Kuzma, at his role and his job in the offense. But Kuzma, if he plays with a little fire under him with this little love triangle going on, it's just something to look out for. But that's just how exciting these NBA Finals are going to be. We're very excited for them to start tomorrow night in Orlando.
9 p.m.
So what was that?
9 p.m. on
9
ABC.
p.m. If you want to watch, it's the ABC crew, I believe.
Mike Breen, Jeff Van Gundy,
legends
and Mark
themselves. That's what makes the NBA Finals even just that much better.
That's true.
That commentary group is one of my favorite commentary groups in any sport. Those three just get each other. They're comedic. I love Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy's banter between each other. Mike Breen is one of the best play-by-play announcers in basketball.
Now that's a Knicks bias right there. No, I'm kidding. That's true.
He's great for the Knicks, and he's even better for ABC.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got one of the most noteworthy catchphrases of all time, too. You want to give it to us, Tyler? Give us a quick
bang!
Bang!
We
might be hearing that a lot in this series, especially with LeBron on the court. But yeah, just very excited for this NBA Finals to start tomorrow night. And we got some other playoffs that are going on in different sports, as we mentioned. MLB starts today. We'll get to that after the break in a little bit. And also the Stanley Cup, that finished last night. Finished last night. So we got a lot of playoff sports going on right now. But
quickly before we take a break, though, Los Angeles Clippers, they fired Doc Rivers, their head coach. We'll briefly touch on this. I wouldn't say it's well-deserved, but I'm not surprised by it because the Clippers have not performed under Doc Rivers. They never made it to a conference finals, still haven't in franchise history. Doc Rivers had all the tools with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I will say Montrezl Harrell wasn't 100%. Patrick Beverley wasn't 100%. Lou Williams, his head I think was on some wings. Paul George was not. Playoff P was more like way off P. Let's be real. Are you surprised by this at all?
No, and also, like you mentioned, the players didn't play great. I mean, Paul George, had he played like a top 10 player, I don't think they would have been in this situation. But he was just off in almost every game. Kawhi had to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and then in some games he was struggling as well because he can't be great every game. So the product on the court obviously is not what it was supposed to be. It looked worse than even before the NBA bubble, and there were concerns back in February when Paul George was injured and not a lot of team was getting a lot of time together. There's concerns back then, and those only increased when they came into the bubble. And you could just tell there's no chemistry there. They didn't know how to play well with each other, and a lot of that does fall on the coach. I'm not really surprised that he got fired. Especially you can't blow 2-3-1 leads in the divisional round in the past 5 years. That can't happen.
No.
So, and that's all Doc Rivers. The only person that's constant between those two teams is Doc Rivers. So his time had to go. He'll find a job somewhere else. I mean, there's vacancies in Philadelphia.
He's been rumored to
Indiana, New Orleans. I mean, there's a lot of head coach vacancies, so he won't be unemployed for long. But his time with the Clippers had to be up. They're in win-now mode. They are the most desperate team in the NBA because Paul George and Kawhi can leave after next year.
Yep.
And they do not have their own draft pick till 2027, I believe.
Because they traded away the Paul
traded
George deal. They traded away their first-round pick from
George.
last year.
They traded everything for Paul George. Yeah, it got rid of
Shai
Gilgeous, who's looking like a stud with the Thunder. And Montrezl Harrell might even be gone this offseason. So this Clippers team is in win-now mode. They're looking pretty desperate because a lot of things are not going their way. Doc Rivers had to be fired to get a new culture, just get a new team, just a new season because this was such a loss this year.
Big time.
There are high expectations. A lot of people thought they'd beat the Lakers had they faced each other and went to the finals. So the Clippers, they need change, and I think it all had to start with Doc Rivers being fired.
All right, we'll talk baseball and some hockey after the break. This is Alyssa and Zelda by Alexandre. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's not country music, so I don't know. But you're listening to WERW Real College Radio. We'll be back in a minute and 10.
We got some baseball to talk about. The MLB playoffs start today. 4 games slated. 2 of them already in the middle of action. The first game of the MLB playoffs, Twins-Astros, bottom of the 6th right now. The Twins hold a 1-0 lead over them. Nelson Cruz has the 1 RBI in that game. Apparently they can't hear us.
Oh, that's because I pressed the wrong button. Again, I gotta stop doing that.
Where?
I'm sorry, everyone. Ryan is on a mic different than the one from last week, and I pressed the wrong button. So
Could they hear you though?
You can definitely hear me because it's the first button. I got fat fingers.
Hey, it's only week 2 since we came back. It's all right though.
Was that your mom who texted you?
Yeah.
Hello, Mrs. Amick. How are you?
We're back.
But yeah, as Ryan was saying, if you couldn't hear him, Twins, Astros, Game 1 of the MLB playoffs on ABC, by the way, which I find very interesting right now. Up 1-0, Nelson Cruz with the lone RBI, top of the 7th. Best out to the playoffs changed, by the way, in MLB this year. They added 16 teams from total, 8 from each AL and NL. And the first round is best 2 out of 3. Yeah. The second round, I believe, is best 3 out of 5, and then it's the World Series, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they had the ALCS, which is
right.
still...
So this is the wild card round, DS. I haven't watched much baseball. Honestly, baseball is it's so boring to me now.
Well, because I would usually watch it during the summer or early spring.
Right.
Because there'd be no other sports on, but they didn't start... Not only did they have a fast season, 60 games for the MLB, that's just way too little. 152 or whatever it normally
162.
162, excuse me, is too long, but 62 short. They need to find a middle ground. I feel like 82, that's what
I think get away
the
with
NBA
100.
does. 100, yeah, nice even number like that. That could work as well.
Mm-hmm.
They need to find a good number that works because even 60 games, even though people have short attention spans these days, it's better to have lower amount of games so people can focus in on them more and so they mean more. So
each game holds more values.
That's the thing. It was pretty sloppy with all the 7-inning games. Also, if games got delayed or postponed, it got more doubleheaders and became 7-inning games. Like, it wasn't the best MLB season. And, yeah, but we're here at the MLB playoffs. 16 teams fighting for one championship. And as we mentioned, one game started already. The Astros and the Twins. Yes.
And then you got White Sox, Oakland, 3-0, top of the 6th, or middle of the 6th, I think it is. White Sox currently up. The Athletics are being no hit right now. 0 hits.
Yeah.
So, pretty good, I will say, by Chicago. They're a team I think could make some noise in this playoffs. Then tonight you got Blue Jays Rays. That starts in about 10 minutes at the end of the show, so you can just transition over. That's going to be on TBS. And then you finally have ESPN, 7 o'clock tonight, New York Yankees versus Cleveland Indians. Garrett Cole versus Shane Bieber. That's going to be a pitching bonanza. Wow. I'm excited for that.
Shane Bieber fresh off triple crown.
As a pitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very solid year for him. Garrett Cole, not so much, but at the same time...
A 60-game season.
This was not... Yeah, this is a 60-game season. Also, the Yankees just got their roster back. Pretty much since I watched the first 2 weeks of Yankee games, that's when they had the roster. Once everyone started getting injured, I didn't really watch.
Luke Voit,
now they're back.
Led the league in home runs to 22.
Two Yankees actually led the league in major statistics because DJ LeMahieu led the AL in batting average. So he's led the AL and NL in batting average in his career. During his time with the Rockies, he was batting champion and now batting champion with the Yankees after almost being a batting champion last year as well. So, man can hit. That's for sure. And Luke Voit, he could hit him out the park because, as you were about to say, he led the major leagues in home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
22.
He had a great year, MVP-type year, with a bunch of the main guys out in the rotation. This year? What?
Is there even an MVP this year?
Oh, there's definitely going to be an MVP. It's going to be weird, obviously. Yeah. I don't even know who's up for
So, by the way, Cole LeMahieu led the league in batting average as well, 364. Voit in home runs. Cole was second in wins in the entire baseball, behind Shane Bieber and Yu Darvish, who had 8. So very solid on that part. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the playoffs. I think playoff baseball is very enjoyable to watch and very fun to watch. And the fact that they added more teams, I think it just gives more, because there's more things that can happen. And I think in years past, when you had just like the top 4 teams from each league, you kind of knew, all right, it's going to be the Yankees are going to advance, the Dodgers are going to advance, Houston will advance, and then, maybe this year is a bit of a wash. Who knows? And then on the NL side, because that's probably something worth mentioning, tomorrow they have game 1s as well as a couple game 2s in the AL. Cincinnati at Atlanta. Atlanta, I think they are the favorites to get it. They're my pick to get out of the NL.
Really?
Over the Dodgers. Wow. I think they've looked really good. Got Miami. That's right, I said Miami. The Marlins made the playoffs over the Mets and the Phillies in the NL East. They get the Cubs.
Well, watch out for the Marlins, actually, because they haven't lost playoff series in their franchise history. So
okay, they've been around for like 20 years.
Hey, still, that's pretty impressive. They've won 2 World Series, so it's not like they just don't go to the playoffs ever. But when they do, they get it done.
Well, no,
it's
they don't go to the playoffs ever.
I mean, yeah, they don't. Yeah, but when they do, it's like the Giants.
Yeah.
When they go to the playoffs, they get it done.
That's true.
Most of the time, they don't go to the playoffs, though, so they don't even have the chance to get it done. But yeah, the Marlins. That's how weird this year is. They're playing. They'll face the Cubs, who I like the Cubs a lot. I'm pretty high on the Cubs. I'd say they'd beat the Braves. I don't.
You think the Cubs could beat the Braves?
I think because their pitching has stepped up a lot since last year. I mean, Yu Darvish had a great year. Kyle Hendricks was good for them. I mean, they still have Jake Arrieta. No, he's on there.
Arrieta's in Philly.
Yeah, he's on the Phillies.
Lester's still there.
Lester, that's who it was. I knew there was one guy who was there from the World Series.
That just shows how much baseball Ryan watches.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not. This is why it's the last segment. We're going to touch up on some hockey as well. So,
yeah, but rounding out the playoffs, you have. I just had it too, which is annoying. Where is it? Cardinals, Padres. Padres have been the story of the league this year, I think.
Yeah,
because of Fernando Tatis, who's been he's the future of the game.
He's the NL MVP.
Yeah.
Most
and then finally rounding it out, Brewers, who had a sub-500 record, mind you, they take on the Dodgers. I like the Brewers. I think they're a cool team. They have no chance to get the Dodgers. No chance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it should make for an interesting playoffs. Obviously, next week we'll probably have more as these wild card rounds wrap up, and we can really start talking about contenders and pretenders. But, Ryan, if you had to pick right now, who's your World Series? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, so sorry.
I like the Cubs, but I think Dodgers, at least in the NL, are going to come out. It's a pretty obvious pick. But just like the Lakers, I mean, they just have more talent than everybody. They've gone to so many World Series in recent memory. I feel like this year might be the Dodgers.
They've had the chance. They went to 2 back-to-back.
They lost to the Astros and the Red Sox.
You're right. Sorry, that's
both who cheated, so maybe they should have won those series. Either way,
they got destroyed by the Red Sox. Let's be real here. The Red Sox beat them.
Yeah, it was more the cheating on the Astros part.
Yeah.
But still, I think the Dodgers, they were looking kind of rough at the beginning of the year. Mookie Betts was not having a good year. Then he turns it into an almost MVP season. I mean, obviously, pitching's there for them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't really see anyone topping the Dodgers. I would hope my Yankees do top the Dodgers, but this doesn't seem like the year, especially with still question marks at pitching aside from Garrett Cole. I mean, James Paxton, what James Paxton are we going to see?
That's true.
In the playoffs. Tanaka, who knows? Tanaka, he could go either way as well. And then there's more younger, unexperienced guys like Montgomery or King who, can't really rely too much on them, especially in a playoff format. So it's just...
But all you need is one game.
That is true.
It's kind of like the guy from Mighty Ducks who's like 1 out of 5 for his shots. All you need is one to go in.
That is true. All you do need is one.
I watched the Mighty Ducks last week. I'll admit that. My picks for the World Series, I'm going to go Chicago White Sox, who were second in the AL Central, 1 game behind the Twins.
And now they're the 7th seed, which is crazy.
Right, they looked really solid.
The White Sox had a great regular season.
Yeah, and then like I said, the Braves. I'm high on the Braves. And I think they're the team of the 2020s. They were like the team in the 90s, especially the early 90s, that were just like there always, and then the Yankees just kept beating them down. I think the Braves could be that team of the 2020s where they're just there deep into playoffs, maybe not winning the World Series every year, but they're in the NLCS 3 straight years, and they make it to the World Series a couple times, maybe win a few. But that's just me. Let's close out the show, though. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's talk a little hockey. Tampa Bay Lightning, they win the Stanley Cup Finals over the Dallas Stars, 4-2, 6 games. First time they've done that since 2006.
2004.
What? God, I said that before.
Said that,
2004.
Yeah.
Dang it. I should know this, too. I shouldn't.
No.
One interesting point to note, though. The Tampa Bay Lightning, their minor league team is the Syracuse Crunch. We're in Syracuse. So a lot of the players on that team and staff have gone through that thing. So a nice little Syracuse tie there to round out the show.
Absolutely. And impressive win for the Lightning. They were out their captain, one of their best players, Steven Stamkos.
Legend.
Still got
himself.
it done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a legend in the Lightning, no matter if he played in this series or not. But they actually had a pretty interesting game. I believe it was Game 4. Let me just check this real quick. But it went to double overtime, tied at 2. And that could have been a changing point in this series.
Game 5.
Because the Stars came out as the winners in that one. Game 5 this Saturday. Stars double overtime, 3-2 the Lightning to kind of come back in this series. It was 3-1 at that point. But the Lightning took care of business. They didn't, like the Falcons, who we ranted on in the beginning of the show, they didn't choke their lead. They held on to it. They got the job done. In years past, they haven't had such great luck in the playoffs. Last year, they lost to the 8th seed in the first round. So total embarrassment on their part. Last year, they come back, bounce back, win the chip. First time in 16 years they've done that. And it also kind of relates to Virginia basketball in the sense that they were the favorites the year before, lost first round in embarrassing fashion, then come around and win the title the next year. So good on the Lightning. Congrats to them. And, it was... there's some hockey analysis from the Chips crew right there. That's the best way to get there.
We say we talk about championships, hence the name Chips.
Yeah. It's the most important thing in any sport. We'll always, whenever there's a major championship, we'll try to talk about it for at least a little bit.
So we're going to talk about golf?
Oh, yeah. Because I like golf, too. I mean, it's not the best thing to watch, but I like playing golf. It interests me.
Ryan's lying. It's the best thing to watch. But yeah, I think, and the thing with the Lightning, too, they lose game 1. They win games 2, 3, 4 by a combined total. They had 13 goals to the Stars' math, 8. I mean, that's pretty dang good.
Yeah, and that's, again, they went up 3-1 off of 3 straight wins.
Yeah.
So that lost in
Game
double
5.
overtime.
We've seen 3-1 leads blown in hockey
But
and
also
basketball.
a game like that, just going down to the wire and losing like that, total momentum shifter. This could have gone bad for the Lightning.
That's
easily.
true.
This easily.
Andre
could have
Valesky,
gone
their
worse.
goalie, played phenomenal this whole series, I thought. All right, well, that's it for the show. Ryan, any final notes before we close things out?
So no more hockey anymore, unfortunately. But we
Can't
do
say we didn't
have,
talk about it.
We do have a very interesting week in basketball with the finals. Maybe it'll be done by next week's show. Who knows? Probably not. I don't think it'll be a sweep or anything.
More football, more baseball?
Yes, more
Sorry,
more playoff baseball, which is just starting today. So we got this whole month to talk about it.
Houston, by the way, just tied the game 1-1, bottom of the 7th. So Houston tied their game against the Twins 1-1, and they're in the bottom of the 7th. So should make for an interesting couple of innings.
Yeah. And obviously we have football for the rest of the semester to talk about. Always exciting. And if we have some time in the next show, let's talk a little about Syracuse football because they're on the up and up at least this week.
They have their bye week this week. So
they have their bye week, but hopefully coming out of the bye.
Yeah, they got a couple wins. Well, that concludes the show. Chips Podcast, WERW, Real College Radio. We thank y'all so much for listening. For Ryan Amick, I'm Tyler Melito. We're going to close it out once again this week with some country music. Sorry, Ryan. This is Just the Way by Parmalee and Blanco Brown. Thank y'all so much for watching. Have a good week, everyone. Ryan, see you next time.
Deuces.